Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your boy, Atypical Security Guard. Today, I want to talk about my top 5 pieces of advice for loss prevention officers. If you're working in the security industry and you're working as a loss prevention officer, you're doing theft deterrence in retail establishments, this is good advice, in my opinion, as someone who's worked in this industry for close to 4 years now. I am coming to this from the security officer standpoint. We work in conjunction with loss prevention for a major retailer. We work in a cover officer capacity. We're basically there to make sure that there's no violence or issues in terms of when that stop for loss prevention is made. So I'm giving this advice from the perspective of an officer who works in that capacity and works alongside loss prevention officers on a daily basis. And again, I've done this for about 4 years and working anywhere from 60 to, over 70 hours a week. So let's get right into it, guys. Number 5, and this is for those new officers, those officers who are fairly inexperienced, and even some of you guys who've been doing it for a while. It's good to have a refresher, right? Let's get right into it. Number 5 is going to be that you cannot catch them all. Okay, I see a lot of loss prevention officers that just get so wrapped up in their numbers. I'm sure that from the administrative side, there are, benchmarks and quotas, things that you guys are supposed to reach. But at the end of the day, you can't catch them all. And in a lot of honesty, the retail establishments themselves, they have made the decision that there is a certain amount of loss and shrink that they're willing to accept, that they're willing to eat. They are wanting you to perform a very specific task in terms of recovery, in terms of deterrence. But at the end of the day, I have seen a lot of young, plainclothes security officers who are working in loss prevention get very, very upset and kind of beaten down by their numbers and by those reports. You're one person, you're, one member of a team. You can't catch all of these people. And unfortunately, retail theft is just on the rise. Take a deep breath. Do your job, do the best that you can, but don't beat yourself up over the numbers because you can't catch them all. Number 4 is going to be to listen to the advice of your officers. If you're working in a retail capacity and you have security guards or security officers that are working with you, most of these guys, I know, for our company specifically, you have people that are new to security, you have people that are former law enforcement, you have people that are former military, you have career security guards. A lot of the guys that are working in the capacity of the cover officer, they have a wealth of knowledge in terms of law enforcement, in terms of, understanding the statutes and the ordinances of the area that we work in. A lot of these guys are seasoned veterans. So lean on them in terms of how to interact with these subjects, how to initiate these stops and these detainments. Now, when I say all of that, I'm not talking about the post orders or the standard operating procedures for the loss prevention, as related to the company. But in terms of how you go about interacting with these people, interacting with these subjects, dealing with these dangerous individuals, really lean on those security officers. If those officers have a wealth of knowledge, have a lot of experience, use that to your advantage and listen to those officers, because a lot of times they have a lot of great information that you could benefit from. And if you're working in a loss prevention capacity and you ultimately want to move into the ranks of, armed security, or you want to go into law enforcement, having these guys with this background, this information in your network will be very, very beneficial to you as you move up through the ranks. Number 3 is going to be easy on the trash talk. Okay. Loss prevention officers have a tendency, in my experience, to get a little loose with the things that they say when they're making a stop, when they're, initiating a detainment, when they're walking someone out of the store. And you have to remember that even though you have a armed guard or security officer with you, the more that you throw fire on the flames of a situation, the more you're putting not only the officers in danger, but yourself in danger. And a lot of times for us, we're working in a cover capacity, so we're behind these loss prevention officers. So, just be careful with, the language or cussing or getting in somebody's face. All of these things, they're not only not professional, they are detrimental in terms of amping some situations up and making them into something they don't have to be. I would say watch that, do your absolute best to remain professional. Remember that everything is being recorded nowadays. And at the end of the day, you don't want to take a situation where you're walking someone out of the store and now it turns into a violent confrontation where either yourself, an innocent bystander, the subject, or the officers get into a situation where they're getting hurt or harmed. Number two, in that same vein, avoid closing the reactionary gap. A lot of times, loss prevention officers, when you have to make that detainment, you have to get close enough to retrieve that merchandise or get your hands on that merchandise. But in the situation where once that's been accomplished and maybe you're walking this person out, or if the security officer is moving in to make that arrest or make that detainment, if you're in a position of the contacting officer and you're not armed, or that's not the capacity that your company wants you working in, give yourself a little space. When things start to go south and the subject starts to get upset, they want to become more verbally aggressive. They want to become more verbally belligerent. They want to potentially become more violent. Once that officer is giving those cues that it's time for him to step in or her to step in and for you to back off, open up that space. Don't close that gap. I've seen a lot of loss prevention officers when the situation should be cut, in situations and that contact should be ended. The merchandise has been retrieved. The person is leaving the stores. They've actually already left through, the exit. They've passed that threshold. The situation should be a break right there. I've seen those loss prevention officers get into a shouting match or a verbal confrontation and then walk right up towards that subject. This is a situation that it does not need to happen. And most oftentimes than not, this is where the situation goes from being a verbal confrontation to now being a physical confrontation. If you're working in that loss prevention position, once you've gotten your merchandise back, once that person has left the store, they've gotten outside those doors, go ahead and break that contact. Moving closer to that person to continue a verbal altercation, it puts everybody at risk. And at the end of the day, again, if things are being recorded, now this is a situation where someone could feasibly say that you are now becoming the aggressor. We want to make sure that we're maintaining professionalism and not putting yourself or the security company in a position where anybody can say that or potentially have any sort of legal ramifications against either. So number one is going to be to always keep it balanced. As a loss prevention officer, you have to remember you're working in a unarmed security capacity. You're working in a plainclothes security capacity for the most part. Keep it balanced. Don't get too serious about your job. You're not law enforcement. You're not a cop. But at the same time, don't get too loose. Don't take it so for granted that you're in that position, because a lot of times in these retail situations, you find that people that are willing to break the law in terms of stealing something, they're also willing to break the law in terms of harming you or stabbing you or even getting into a shootout or something even worse. So, keep it in a balanced position, understanding why you're there, what your job is, what your duties are. Don't take it too serious, but please, please, please also don't play it too loose, because I've seen a lot of people get themselves into physical confrontations and potentially get themselves hurt by not taking it seriously. But my question is, what do you guys think? If you were giving advice to a new or current loss prevention officer, what would be your tips to those officers? Drop those comments down below. Help a brother out. All right. You guys be safe and be great. Be great.